This is Steve Farnsworth for the Product Configurator News. I'm talking with Mark Keenan from Technicon about the future of guided selling software. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, how's it going, Steve?
Mark, how has the B2B buyer changed over the years? How has it changed today?
The easiest way for me to answer that question is to tell a little story, a true story in this case. We do a lot of research on B2B buying and selling, and one of the things we recently did was we did interviews with one of the largest design firms in North America. It's called Gensler. They're located in San Francisco. Fairly famous design firm, large. They're in a classic B2B relationship because they're in the business of specifying designs for large buildings, maybe hotels or other large buildings across the country. And when we talked to the librarians there, they very quickly not only noted the fact that there's a change in the B2B relationships and behaviors, they went so far as to segment their designers into two groups. The experienced or legacy designers very much operate on relationships with their particular vendors. So if they want to specify, say, new fabrics or new carpeting for a hotel, they'll almost always pick up the phone and call the fabric companies, the furniture companies, those folks to talk it over and try to get a list of samples and have a discussion about what's new in the marketplace and what should they be specifying. At the same time, the librarians pointed to the newer designers who don't behave that way at all. The new designers really rarely use the library. They almost never call the vendors. They're almost always expecting to find all the information online in detail. And they use a number of different mechanisms online, but it's a different world. They expect all the resources to be available online. They expect online systems that will help them understand what products are available and how to specify new products.
Well, so just kind of jumping off that, I mean, how does marketing and sales need to change to meet the informational needs of this new B2B buyer?
If you can repeat it one more time, Steve.
Certainly. How do marketers and salespeople too need to change the information that they're providing to meet the requirements of this new B2B buyer?
Yeah, it's really clear. I mean, there's several things. First, marketing. I think they're aware of it, but they need, especially in the B2B marketplace, they need to understand that their buyers' expectations are set by consumer experiences. So, the classic B2B buyer is, not only are they doing B2B, but they're going to be on Amazon, they're going to be on iTunes, they're going to be purchasing airline tickets online. When they come to specifying business products, they'll expect the exact same resources and experience that they'd get in a consumer application. So marketing has to be aware of that. And it can be challenging because a B2B purchase can be a more complex purchase. It can require more assets, more information. So it's a challenge for those marketers, but the folks who crack that code will lead. Salespeople need to be aware that they're operating in an environment where they don't have all the information. The successful marketing enterprise will have a lot of information online available. And the role of the salesperson is really to be more of a collaborator. Somebody who's assisting somebody, leveraging that information that's out there, facilitating this, the solution so that the B2B buyer is really getting what they desire.
So in terms of understanding the difference between a product configuration tool and a guided sales tool, can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Product configuration, it's a legacy term. It's used a lot, because it sort of is the term that's out there. But really, historically, what it's meant is keeping a B2B buyer in a legal box. In other words, something that can be built. You wouldn't build a table with two legs because that table is not going to stand. It's never going to meet the requirements of any most any customer. And it might be a safety issue or other issues. A classic product configurator is going to keep you from building a table that has two legs or something that doesn't work or can't be manufactured. That's not the issue with guided sales. Guided sales is saying, well, there may be billions of combinations or types of tables out there. Let us show you in your own terms, in the way you're concerned with, Mr. Buyer, what are the products that match your desires? So you're not saying this is legal or not legal. You're saying here are different options that meet your criteria. Let's coach you in the ways, the systems you're used to or expect, to something that meets your desires. Furthermore, guided sales takes that one more step along the continuum where at the same time you're coaching the user on what their desires are or what will meet their desires, you as a manufacturer are cognizant of what's going to be most profitable. What do you have in stock? What's the thing that's the lowest cost, most profitable option for you to sell?
Do you have a real-world example about the difference between product configuration and guided sales?
Oh yeah, lots of them. So, the classic, and then, this is tricky because not everybody understands these different products. We have customers that manufacture actuators or widgets. These are, you can think of them as little machines that are made to move things around or push things. Well, these companies will have literally 10,000, 20,000 base products. One product could explode out into 10, 20,000 different combinations. So, if you just left customers on their own, they wouldn't know how to choose between 10,000 different things with slight variations. Our customers will come into systems that allow the customer to describe the problem in their terms. So in this case, don't tell me about your widget. Let me ask you about how big is the object you're trying to push. How much does it weigh? Are you pushing it up and down? Are you pushing it side to side? Tell me about your problem. And once I understand your problem, and this is on an online automated tool, then I can start making recommendations that start winnowing down from those millions and billions of combinations, start steering you towards directions that might meet your requirements. That's one example. I mean, another example might be a light pole vendor. We have lots of light pole vendors. We'll constantly guide people as they make selections, what's in stock, what are they likely to get quickly. We'll create pictures of the product, even though the product's never been made. We'll test the product. So as you're choosing it, we'll tell you whether this product seems to make sense for California or whether this product, conversely, is more appropriate for Louisiana. I would never know that, not being in the business, but that's actually the way the business works, where light poles vary depending on which state you're in or region you're in based upon weather conditions and standards. Our online systems will sort of guide users to those different criteria.
What in your mind, what are the key factors driving the change of B2B buyers' expectation for their user experience?
Give me a little, what are you looking for there, Steve? I mean, in terms of, what's an example? Or?
Well, I mean, in terms of the factors that, but B2B buyers have an expectation about how they're going to interact with a product, their UI experience, the user experience.
Well, clearly, the bar is being raised constantly. I was alluding to it earlier when we were talking. B2B buyers really have a highly consumer-oriented expectation. So that, they're probably interacting more with Amazon or iTunes on a daily basis than they are with a B2B purchase decision. So their expectations for these B2B systems are extremely high. They're looking for consumer-like, easy-to-use interfaces, and they're doing it in an environment that's very complex. I just was talking about actuators. I was talking about light posts. Those are infinitely more complex environments and problems than buying a book off Amazon. But it really doesn't matter. Customers don't care that it's a complex environment. What their expectations are, no matter what, you're still going to have the same tools, the same experience you might get on some of those consumer sites.
Well, in terms of collaboration is big for sales internally, but you see collaboration integration into the sales process with the customers. Could you explain what you mean? What you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, I generally, especially with the newer B2B buyers, they initially want to do their research and their purchasing experience on their own. They really want to do preliminary investigations, get close, get comfortable. So they're not looking to talk to you. They're looking to start that journey on their own. But, still these are complex areas. At a point when they get comfortable, they are looking for collaboration in multiple ways. Take a designer. We were talking about light poles. If you're setting out light poles for community, you can expect you're going to have 5 or 6 constituents that are interested in that. It's going to go into a community, so you're going to have maybe local politicians or local zoning people who want to see the solution. So you need to make it available so they can see the requirements prior to the selection being made. You may have dealers. In lighting, you're going to have installation issues. You need to know. You might need to have an electrician who reviews the electrical requirements. And finally, it's really common. You haven't done this before. You do it on a regular basis. Yeah, I'm at a point where I would like an experienced salesperson or somebody who does this all the time to check and validate that I'm really doing something that makes sense. I'm in the right ballpark. So come in and give me confidence that I've done a good job of it. But that's much further down the pipeline. That's after I'm 80, 90% feeling comfortable I specified what I want. But all those are collaborative touch points where I selectively invite different constituents in to come and participate with this specification as it moves through the pipeline.
How will integrating guided selling software with automation streamline the manufacturing, support, and delivery?
It's a big deal. There are multiple different points where it does that. I was alluding to one. I mean, user starts self-research. They're doing a lot of the work on their own where they're most comfortable with it. They're communicating to you. When we talk about guided sales, they're communicating to you their environment and requirements. I live in Louisiana. I might have wind conditions that are this. I like blue. I like the color blue. They're communicating to that, and it's being captured by your systems early on in the process. Dealers or salespeople may come in, and they may add information to that to move it through the pipeline. Maybe they want to change the pricing, but they don't have to re-enter in the base information. The consumer's already done it. They're just adding in their value add. From there, the order is moving through the pipeline. So it's really common in these systems. You might have an engineering constituency that comes in and maybe modifies an order simply or creates a specification for it. So take these products we've been talking about. You might create a picture of it, even though it's never been built. You might create a custom product, so you might create a CAD model. Because these things have never been built, those CAD models then may be used directly in manufacturing. So we have a lot of customers where the CAD model will go straight to a laser machine that cuts out a shape, or it's part of the manufacturing flow. Nobody's touched it. The model's going in. It's going to be manufactured to the specification that a customer directly entered. You're creating proposals, so a lot of these systems will could be sets of documentation It may be 200, 300 pages. Some of that's proposal, but some of it's actually operating instructions. Down the road, you may need to automate spares or that kind of information. Well, you're tracking an order, so you as a user can order a spare that's tied directly to the thing you purchase. All those are automation points which in the past wouldn't have happened.
And so by integrating it into the entire process, you're saying is you're reducing friction points, and by definition able to deliver the product more quickly and close that deal or close for revenue more quickly too, by definition.
You are, and you're opening up using roles-based systems to touch points at very particular places in the order flow so that the appropriate person can add the information they need to add without re-entering or trying to redo any of the work that's gone on to date.
Perfect. Mark, I appreciate you joining us. Mark Keenan is a guided selling expert who works for Technicon, and this has been Steve Farnsworth for Product Configurator News. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks.